Who destroyed their own career within seconds by being an idiot? Before we get started, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and turn on the bell so you don't miss future videos. Thanks for the support. One of the managers I worked with, he was visiting a company site in another country. He went to a men's club and then onto a private room for adult entertainment, whatever, etc. Because he was traveling on work business, he, of course, claimed these costs on a company expense claim. We never saw him again. Next story. One of the girls in the customer support team at a previous company got absolutely drunk at the Christmas party, did a full inappropriate performance on a tabletop in front of all staff and their partners, got right down to the skin before anyone could yank her down. We came to work the following Monday, and her desk was just gone. Not just personal items packed up in a box, but the entire desk had been dismantled and taken out of the CS area. Apparently, the CS manager was so furious about the situation that he wanted to send a message that she wasn't just fired, but was to be totally erased from company existence. Next story. This kid I worked with for a week at a sales job who tried to buy drugs off of a customer because, and I quote, "I don't know, they looked like they might have drugs." They did not have drugs, but they did have the number to corporate. Next story. The FBI agent that did the backflip in a bar, dropped his firearm, grabbed it, negligent discharge, someone was hit but lived, arrested, prosecuted, and terminated. Next story. The white lady who called the cops on a black man who was bird watching in a public park and asked her to put her dog on a leash. When she called the police, she was screaming about a black man trying to get me, and he was this nerdy-looking guy who watches birds. She had a very lucrative job at Franklin Templeton Investments. She was fired. Next story. Slobodan Jankovic, basketball ball player who in a fit of temper during a game, following a referee's decision, smashed his head against a concrete pillar for the backboard and paralyzed himself in seconds. The video is hard to watch. A moment's rage and a lifetime's regret. Next story. I don't think she destroyed her career, but she certainly got fired. A colleague took a week off for a personal emergency and posted pictures of herself in Hawaii on social media. Next story. I was a second-year professor in physics when I flunked the starting center from the university basketball team, even after a meeting with the athletic director, the dean, my department head, and the university president. I stuck to my guns. They laid me off 4 months later. I had to become a programmer. He was taking Intro to Astronomy. Next story. Missouri Congress candidate Todd Akin using the term legitimate abuse around 2012 on the campaign trail. It basically smoked his entire political career in about 2 seconds. Next story. A shop floor employee ended his 25-year career when he told his supervisor that he was going home and getting my weapon, and I'm going to show you how damn serious I am. He then proceeded to leave, at which point the police were called, and when he showed back up, he was arrested. And yeah, he had his loaded weapon in the car. What was he so annoyed about? That mandatory overtime coincided with the opening day of fishing season, and he wasn't allowed to use PTO to go fishing. Well, he missed 6 opening days of fishing season for that one, because that's how long he spent in prison. Next story. This probably doesn't count since the career in this case hadn't started yet, but a couple dudes at Comic-Con burned a pretty valuable bridge. A guy was taking an interest in some artwork that he thought was very good. When he inquired about it, they were reportedly pretty rude to him and asked him to leave. They were waiting on some other friends. The guy that inquired left a very short tweet about it later, referencing the interaction and saying it was too bad because their work was pretty good. I googled his name. He was a vice president of animation at Marvel Comics. Next story. Former coworker. Used to work for municipal government. He went on a discriminatory tirade against a co-op student who was the daughter of an elected representative, terminated with cause within an hour. Next story. Gerald Ratner. Owned a ton of low-cost jeweler shops in the United Kingdom and over 1,000 in the US. Ratner made a speech addressing a conference of the Institute of Directors at the Royal Albert Hall on 23 April 1991. During the speech, he commented, "We also do cut glass sherry decanters complete with 6 glasses on a silver-plated tray that your butler can serve you drinks on, all for £4.95. People say, "How can you sell this for such a low price?" I say, "Because it's total crap." He compounded this by going on to remark that one of the sets of earrings was cheaper than a prawn sandwich from Marks and Spencer's, but I have to say, the sandwich will probably last longer than the earrings. The company lost 500 million in value within days as shares plummeted, and he left the following year. Next story, Igor Litvinchuk, the guy who threw a rock at an endangered seal in Hawaii. People told him not to. He said, "I'm rich, I can afford the fine," and did it anyway. He got a physical confrontation for it. It's all on camera, and the guy who assaulted him received a formal award from the island. He apparently owns a small business, which is likely to struggle. Next story, Kristen Gray. She wrote an ebook on how she and her partner moved to Bali illegally by overstaying her visa to basically live the rich and pampered life because she's a rich American compared to Indonesian citizens. She promoted it all over Twitter and got herself deported. Next story, Peter Chung. Businessman went on a business trip to Korea and used his professional email to brag about be intimate with every hot Korean woman he sees to his friends. Also bragged about his expensive abode being paid by the company and using his boss's Porsche to drive around. Was terminated as soon as he returned and owed the company an apology. Next story, a deputy I knew was at his graduation party. Tradition is to invite the training staff, who usually only stay for a few hours, so the new deputies can let off some steam. This ding-dong decided to moon the staff and their spouses. He forgot he was on a 1-year probation after graduation. He was fired after showing the staff and spouses his nerve. Next story, Nico Harrison, Dallas GM, in the Luka trade. The previous owner of the Dallas Mavericks spent a lot of time and money building around their star player and generational talent, Luka Doncic. This effort and years of building around Luka got the Dallas Mavericks to the NBA Finals. The next year, that owner sold the team. Nico got the new owner to agree to trade him off for a host of reasons, one of which is believed to be a personal grudge. Normally, a player of Luka's caliber would be worth his weight in players and future draft picks due to a bidding war that would happen by teams that want him. Instead, Nico kept his availability a complete secret, didn't shop around, and sent him to the Lakers in a trade composed of him and 2 other players for Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and a pick. Nico said that we should trust his vision, and that this trade would make Dallas a winning team, and that they are in win-now mode, despite trading off the linchpin of their team. The trade was heavily scrutinized because Luka was 26 and had years of great play ahead of him. Anthony Davis was a great player, but he is in the twilight of his career and had been so injury-prone that he'd earned a host of nicknames, such as Data Davis and Street Clothes. Wanting to prove everyone wrong, got off to a roaring start with Dallas and displayed one of the most dominant halves we've seen. Then he got injured in the 3rd quarter. 1 year later, was only stayed healthy enough to play 30 out of some 85-ish games for Dallas, and they're one of the worst teams in the league. The day after the trade, fans would chant, "Fire Nico!" He was so hated that he'd have to hide in the player tunnels to watch games. Team legend Dirk Nowitzki was so upset by the trade that he went to the LA Lakers season opener the next year instead of Dallas. His career was effectively over as soon as the trade went live. No one would want him after working out that kind of secret deal. And once the new owner figured things out, ticket prices dropped into double digits except games versus the Lakers, where the cheapest seat was still $300 plus, and the fans would boo their own team and cheer Luka. He was gone. Next story. I work as a firefighter paramedic. A couple of EMTs I worked with went to paramedic school and got fired and had their licenses revoked by the state for forging signatures on their paperwork. They had to get signatures verifying the hours they work from the hospital staff where they did clinical practice, and a few of them forgot to get some signatures. They got caught because an instructor found a sheet of paper one of them accidentally turned in with some other papers where they had been practicing said signatures. What's super dumb is that they did the hours. They just forgot the signatures. All it would have taken was a call to the hospital clinical coordinator and the papers could have been signed properly, but they decided to forge it and they lost their jobs over it. They'll also never work anywhere as firefighters or EMTs or paramedics because it's basically impossible to get certified again if any state revokes your cards. Next story. The coworker who tweeted that our telecommunications company was making a huge mistake by not offering mobile and instead refocusing on internet. He forgot that our vice president was following him on Twitter. He got the last laugh though. The company finally entered the mobile market by buying a smaller company for a lot of money. And it was too late. They got absorbed by a competitor. I had been laid off years before, so had a giggle at that. Next story. I spent most of my career working for a huge life insurance company, and back in the early 90s, we went through a big restructuring of the sales territories. To kick off the process, we attended a regional meeting at a posh conference center just outside of DC. Our agency's top producer was on the program, scheduled to deliver a 15 to 20-minute address on a new product the company was rolling out. He started his presentation with a couple innocent jokes, then morphed into a very blue monologue, including jokes about sleeping with policyholders. He said later that he enjoyed the laughs his first couple jokes got him, and just let things get out of hand. The agency manager asked him for his resignation that evening. Next story. I did tech theater and had lights and sound experience. A friend of mine got me an interview at a venue owned by a famous musician to be their tech director. It was a brand new place and was top of the line everything for its day. I got the job, signed the paperwork and everything. I went celebrating with my friends over the weekend and used substances. I showed up to report Monday and was sent for a talk screen and was let go. It was my dream job. I love live performance. I'm not talented in any performance arts, but I was good at technical theater. Had I continued through that specific opportunity, I would have been given connections and contacts with the potential to put me in studios and on stages for major labels and the talent they represent. Not Eras Tour stuff, but world tour stuff for artists near that level of success. I've never had another opportunity in that field. I did get to work a couple theaters, but never got brought on by the house in the end. Next story, Thomas Gibson. Played Greg on Dharma and Greg and was in Criminal Minds after that. Had some sort of altercation on the set of Criminal Minds and was released from his contract. Evidently has some anger management issues. Haven't heard much from him since. Next story, I was one of 10 first-year associates at a large accounting firm. At the end of our first week, the firm had an end of busy season party for the 4,000 employees in our office. Live band, free booze. One of the guys I started with got drunk and somehow ended up on the dance floor with the wife of our managing partner. We all got sent off for 2 weeks of training, but after we got back, we never heard from the guy again. Next story. I worked with a guy who was a contractor for the federal government for 15-ish years before getting hired on as a federal employee. It was either a week before or after being officially hired, he was sent to another state for training. He met a woman in the airport and invited her to his hotel room. He missed the first 2 days of class, and the instructor called his boss. Well, the boss called him and asked how class was, and he made it sound like he was attending class. He not only was fired, but he had to explain to his wife why. Next story. The gal who didn't like the company issued laptop it gave her, so she used her company P-card to buy a pretty laptop from Best Buy. She brought it to us. We looked at her like a third arm was growing out of her forehead. It was over $1,000, a capital expense, and wasn't pre-approved, so she was crap-canned. Next story. Island Boys. Despite being terrible at music and everything else, they somehow started rolling in cash and blew it all on cars and jewelry. Could have banked it, invested it very conservatively, and still lived on a very comfortable 6 figures just in interest. I think they're on Cameo now for like $35 a video. Next story. Me. I was a writer for a research paper 2 years ago. I was also responsible for managing 2 other junior writers in the team. During the entirety of writing the research paper, they were great. They responded to feedback promptly and quickly. They finished their sections well before the deadline. They were on paper, great writers. Then came the time to actually present our papers. During a conference where we had to defend our papers to our peers before being published. Both of my junior writers embarrassed themselves. One got into a very public argument with my boss, and the one who would actually publish our paper, where she very loudly called her an idiot in front of the entire conference. The other got caught doing unauthorizing edits to parts of our paper after the deadline, again, in front of the entire conference. Paper got automatically rejected before the end of the conference. As the main writer and their supervisor, I ended up being responsible for this boondoggle. I ended up getting fired and thrown out the research team alongside them because of my poor management skills. Next story. Ashley Simpson. When the wrong song played over the speakers on SNL, her band got it and saved themselves by playing Pieces of Me for a second time. Ashley panicked. Never got the hint from her band and kept thinking, I can't sing the same song twice, and instead did a hoedown off stage and blamed her band after the commercial break. Next story. Kanye has to be the peak of this. If he just retired and deleted his social media after Donda, maybe gone into producing full-time, he'd be looked at on the same level as Jay-Z today. Next story. This one just happened and is still happening. If you want to watch one in real time, Chiron Gossa, New Zealand. Entrepreneur and head of Wealth Mentor Ltd. slapped a woman he was meant to be mentoring on video and sent her cease and desist letters for sharing footage of the assault. In the video, he can be heard bragging about how he owns the video, so there will be no consequences. Currently on most of New Zealand's crap list, and has removed his socials and gone into virtual hiding. Reality about to hit like a ton of bricks. Next story, I was a cable technician once. The guy who trained me got fired many months later because he bet a customer that he could guess her bra size. She didn't appreciate it. Next story, I used to be a contractor on a big United Kingdom government IT project. The sort where a security clearance is required. One of the other contractors was a bit of a smarmy git. He believed that if you obtained consent to be intimate using deception, you couldn't be charged with an offense. Everyone just thought he was being edgy. Eventually, he moved on to another project in another town. Good riddance. Then a few months later, word goes around to delete his contact details and remove social media links. I didn't have to. Turns out he had put his theory to the test. Created a fake, inappropriate arrangement-style website, rigged his flat with cameras, and posed as a recruiting agent. He deceived several victims before one went to the police. He was charged with serious offenses and fraud by deception, went to prison, lost his security clearance, and generally screwed up his life for a few minutes of selfish behavior and some crappy footage. Next story, used to work with a guy that went missing for a few days while on a business trip. His manager got worried and called the police at the city where he was. Well, he was in custody. Dude got drunk and ran into an electrical pole. He made it out of the car, through live wires, and made on foot back to the hotel. The police find him, and he has the nerve to say he's a test pilot and had crashed an experimental aircraft, and the accident was the cover-up. True story. Can't make this crap up. Next story. Stephen Marshall, former Premier of South Australia, steered the state through COVID with only one lockdown that lasted less than a week. I think we even avoided deaths. He was the most popular state leader we'd had in years. He was so confident that we were through COVID, he opened the state up to interstate visitors 2 weeks before Christmas's 2021, so everyone could go home to see family. Anyway, a bunch of infected people from the East Coast came over, gave half the state COVID. Lots of people missed family Christmases. Everyone was annoyed. They were voted out in a landslide in March of 2022. His whole political career wiped out through one silly decision. Next story. The investment banker about 30 years ago that got drunk on a plane. They refused to serve him, so he climbed up onto the beverage cart, pulled down his pants, and proceeded to use the restroom. Next story. My coworker at a pizza joint crashed the company car in the first hour, takes off, but the car had the shop's name on it and the other driver saw it. Cops show up and screening test her and she is high. Lost her license and her job. Next story. Tiffany Gomez, the woman on an airplane that was recorded trying to get off a plane after departure and told everyone, "I'm telling you right now, that jerk back there is not real." She also warned passengers, "You can sit on this plane and you can damn pass with them or not. I'm not going to." The American Airlines flight had to return to the gate on July 2nd, 2023. She refused to leave the airport and was cited for trespassing. She lost her job and became a subject of international ridicule. Next story. The manager and an employee at the brokerage firm I worked at caught having intimate activity in the mother's room, a designated, private room for nursing moms to pump on company time. Next story. The guy that tossed a rock at a monk seal in Hawaii and then said, "I don't care, I'm rich," not only got hunted down and beaten up by a local, but his company lost all their money or some crap. Or the Stewart guy that said go back to China to a Chinese lady and her daughter on Mother's Day. He got fired by his company, and I don't think anyone's going to try to hire him anytime soon. Next story. A guy I worked with got a big job with a competitor company. He had access to the company-wide email alias, and on his last day, he sent a company-wide email airing all his grievances. Turns out the CEO of the company he was going to work for was best friends with the CEO of our company. He was fired before he even started and never worked in the industry again. Next story. Will Smith. What happened that night is kind of incredible. On what should have been the peak achievement of his career, an Oscar win, after grinding for decades to improve his craft, as well as being a beloved household name, he destroyed his career. His actual win will forever be overshadowed by that moment. Next story. Formula 2 driver. He was a promising talent and one of the more likely to end up in Formula One. He used a racial slur on a live stream, and that ended his career. Dropped by Red Bull and his racing team. He's in IndyCar now, though, but not doing particularly well. Next story, James Charles. He sent inappropriate messages to minors, and most recently publicly shamed a Spirit Airlines employee on TikTok, thus causing them to lose 300,000 plus followers. I hope it continues. Next story, Mel Tucker. Annoyed away like 80-something million because he pleasured himself while talking to an abuse survivor and SA advocate who he had come talk to the Michigan State football team about harassment. Fired with cause 2 years after signing a $95 million contract. Now he gets nothing. Next story. One of my old coworkers made a bed on a flatbed cart and got caught sleeping on it by the boss 3 levels over our boss because she was touring the facility. When you get fired from the state, you are sanctioned from ever working there again. Last time I heard, he's working at a warehouse now for much less money. Next story. I was a new grad RN 40 years ago. Another new grad was to give mag citrate. Back then it came in a glass bottle, open with a bottle opener, Sev Cold GI Prep. I looked up from the med cart to see her removing the bottle cap with her teeth. The world-famous LA hospital, not UCLA, said goodbye in 15 minutes. I hope she rallied and had a great career. She definitely had a fun streak. Next story. Before I started working there, my job had a Christmas party that resulted in 3 people getting fired. 2 of them behaved very inappropriately in public. A man and woman would have been fired for the same, so hooray for it not being a discriminatory firing, I guess. I'm not sure what the third person did. Probably got drunk as crap and caused problems. At a different job, one employee had been clocking in for herself and for another employee who wasn't at work. Went smooth as crap for months. But then someone needed to find the absent employee during her shift. Management checked the surveillance camera at the time she clocked out, because her being Mia wasn't cool. And that's how the scheme got found out. Both got fired. Kinda sucks because I was friendly with one of them, but she deserved it. Oh, how did I forget the big one? A husband and wife worked together at the same job at the first story. Her for almost 20 years, him for about 4. She got fired for reasons I'm not sure of to this day. After simmering for a few days, the husband threatened the 2 big bosses and was immediately terminated. Because of his threats, we had police patrolling the office for a week. The whole thing happened while I was on vacation, which made me sad because I love drama. Next story, the Director of Operations. Back in 2019, dude had a $125K per year job, but was accused of harassing an employee of another company at a work conference. He claimed all he did was make 1 or 2 mildly inappropriate comments, that her husband was a lucky guy, and he made extremely inappropriate comments of a personal nature. Something along those lines. Yet somehow, the entire company was banned from the hotel chain. So immediately people knew something wasn't adding up. His boss, who he was friends with, had tried covering up for him for months, but the woman eventually bypassed him and went to HR. At his first post on Reddit, he was asking for guidance on how to avoid getting fired. The comments virtually all said the same thing, that his time was up, and to either submit his resignation or admit wrongdoing and apologize, in the hopes of securing a severance package and getting officially laid off, with a neutral reference rather than fired for misconduct. He didn't take the advice and thought he could work his way out of it. The meeting went exactly as people thought it would. The rest of his posts detail his frustration at his old boss ghosting his texts and calls, asking for his job back, and not being hired at other companies despite interviewing well because he couldn't pass the background check. He also asked for advice on how to keep it from his wife, who he insisted shouldn't know about it. At that point, there were no further developments for a few months until his wife posted a story with similar details on Reddit, and people connected the dots to him. She told the entire story, including parts he'd left it out. It turned out the harassment he was accused of went far beyond just risque comments, and he'd hidden the fact he was terminated from her for months. He pretended to have received the new job and would wake up, put on coffee in the morning, wear a suit, and leave as if going to work, but was in fact going to the gym or spending time at coffee shops, applying for jobs in the hopes someone would hire him, all while tapping into their family savings. Eventually, after a few months of this pretending on his part, there was some kind of plumbing malfunction at home, and the wife, who had recently given birth to their second child, couldn't solve it alone, so she tried his cell phone, but he wasn't picking up. She then tried to contact whom she was told was his new employer, but the secretary told her she didn't know who he was. Confused and worried, she asked to be transferred to HR, who told her the truth. The husband had in fact been interviewed for a position, but was rejected once the harassment came to light. Shortly afterward, the wife filed for divorce and was granted custody of the children. She got into a new relationship, while the husband couldn't find a job in his field and had to take a job as a used car salesman. Next story, guy at work lost his cool in a meeting, told the boss and the client to go out themselves on a call with the client. It was over changing the schedule up 3 days. The work was already done. He just wanted to stand on principle. Cool. The boss was like, "Hey man, not sure what you were trying to prove, but I have to fire you." Next story, Jason Spencer, member of the Georgia House of Representatives. You might remember him as the dude on Sacha Baron Cohen's HBO show, Who is America, who shouted the slurs. He resigned 2 days after that episode aired. Next story, DaBaby. Dude was on top of the world until he made very offensive, discriminatory statements at a music festival or concert. Literally was the last time he was talked up as somebody important to rap music. Next story, Natalia Kills, the singer. She wasn't huge, but she was doing decent for herself and was a judge with her husband on New Zealand's The X Factor. Her and her husband mocked some poor guy for copying her husband's style. He was also wearing a suit. There was a big uproar. She was fired from the show and changed her stage name to Teddy Sinclair, but never regained the popularity she once had. Next story, Texas businessman Clayton Williams was running for Texas governor in 1990 and had a huge lead over his opponent, Ann Richards. One day on the campaign, he made an extremely offensive comparison about women being assaulted. This was the last in a number of faux pas actions that tanked his campaign. Next story, I was on the train one day. A young guy in the seat across the aisle from me was on the phone to his friend saying that he started a new job that day. Reading a book, I overheard him, then to tell his friend how he hoped there were hot chicks to nail, and made a few awful comments. I get to my office, working for the government in a director role, and would you believe it? In the kitchen is this guy with a bunch of new recruits. I introduced myself to everyone. His face dropped, and let's just say he didn't come back for day 2. Next story, my ex-husband. It was literally the night before they were going to offer him the job. He nailed the first and the second interview. They had called his references. Things were going really well. My ex decided to get intoxicated and use his key to get into the future place of employment the night before the job offer because he could. Then he got into a verbal altercation with security, and then he didn't get a job offer. And in his field, once they call references, you're basically guaranteed the job. Next story, my brother. He spent 12 years getting his bachelor's in engineering, and literally months within graduating, he got smacked with a felony because he was stalking his ex-girlfriend. I told him to not tell people he had a sister. Next story, stretching the within seconds bit, but previous Nestle CEO got into hot waters for allegedly lying to the board and hiding a relationship with one of his direct reports. Company was tipped off and launched an internal investigation. They couldn't get any serious proof, so they told him he was in the clear, legally speaking. He decided to celebrate his win by going on vacations with her, was fired almost immediately. Next story. My favorite judge got a DUI, but worse. The supervisor in our office was caught physically assaulting his mistress at work. There goes a $120K career. The judge got his back. Next story. I wasn't a fan of one of my managers for many reasons. One day he just stopped showing up to work. 6 months later, my general manager said his absence would be permanent. Turns out he was asking coworkers for money for back child support, and they were fool enough to give it to him. And he was also stealing company equipment and pawning it off at the same pawn shop. Was it all going to his kids? Of course not. He is spending it all on sports bets. Next story. A guy at my cousin's company faked being sick for a week to attend a music festival. He posted stories the entire time. Drinks, concerts, VIP passes, everything. What he forgot? His manager followed him on Instagram. He came back Monday acting exhausted and coughing dramatically. HR called him in before lunch. His job was gone by 3 p.m. Destroyed his career, speedrun any. Next story. I work nights at a home for people with disabilities. A few weeks ago, I asked my coworker to please take care of breakfast while I took care of meds. Mind you, I had already made breakfast. All she had to do was heat it up, plate it, and serve it. Instead of helping me, she decided to curse me out for cutting into her precious playing on the phone in the bathroom time, and then stormed out of the house, leaving me alone to handle everything. All of this was caught on camera. I don't know if she was fired or she quit before she could be, but I haven't seen her since, and I've been a lot happier at work since then. Next story. An NHS Trust chief executive took his team to the Savoy for a leaving do and charged it all on an NHS credit card. Became an ex-NHS executive. I've just Googled this to check details, and it turns out he's not the only one to do similar. What's the quickest way you've seen someone ruin their career? Next story. New start training. A pair of brand new audit staff decided to get intimate in the hallway of the hotel they were at. Literally 2 days into training, hadn't even seen their first client yet, and back to the resumes. Senior manager let go after getting a summer intern pregnant. Plot twist. Another manager was let go a year later after it turned out the child was actually his. Turned out a senior manager, a manager, and 2 seniors were all involved with her. Next story. Not quick, but legendary. Early in our accounting careers, my wife, GF at the time, and I worked at separate firms in Los Angeles. She was new and had a senior who would show up for only 15 minutes, give her a ton of work, and disappear. Let's call him Aaron, and his career literally became legend. Firm number 1. Aaron got caught slacking off and running up expense reports at my wife's regional firm. Fired. Firm number 2. Aaron gets hired at my mid-tier firm a month later. Got caught ghost auditing. Fired. We get married and move 500 miles away. I take a job in Big 4. Firm number 3. While at my new firm, my audit team tells me crazy stories of a guy sent to us from the LA office to help in a big client. He racked up 5-figure expense reports, which included new clothes, computer, and renting a car for months at a time without returning it during weekends. He also got caught ghost auditing. When I asked his name, they all said, Aaron! Yeah, he was fired. Next story. We had a staff 1 get drunk on a holiday office trip a few years back, and then projectile vomit all over the bus on the way back. His bus had one of the founders on it, and the bus company happened to be a firm client. Next story. I've seen many individuals get fired, and every instance involved them drinking too much. Once at the annual firm event, I saw a guy steal a bottle of liquor from behind a bar that was shut down. The staff and eventually police chased him throughout the resort. Towards the end of his run, he ran right by me right before getting nabbed. Cops walking past me in cuffs, and the guy actually says, "Thanks for helping out," to which I respond, "I don't even know you." About 5 other stories just like that. Lots of people cannot handle free booze. Next story. Using a work laptop to access adult content from home, thinking nothing bad would happen if he didn't use the VPN. Ended up downloading some virus or malware that was caught and quarantined when he was in the office. Didn't last 2 months in total. Next story. The Rita Crundwell $54 million fraud took place about an hour from me. She lived the good life for 20 years before getting caught, only served 10 years, got supervised release during the pandemic, and just got pardoned by Biden. If she socked away any money, she's in effect already won. Evidently, the only careers ruined were at the audit firm that never discovered the fraud. Next story. White guy started working at a call center I managed at. This dude came from a fairly wealthy background, and he bragged about it a lot. He was kind of low-key sexist and hit on every half-attractive woman in the call center. He really thought he was the crap. Then he dropped like 5 racial slurs in the course of a conversation with myself and several other coworkers, 2 of whom were black. It was obvious that it was a regular part of his vocabulary. It still was just extremely unprofessional and was said so blatantly that it was obvious he was baiting me. I termed him on the spot. He was the first person I had ever fired and the only person I ever enjoyed firing. Next story. We had a new girl last tax season that pulled a tax return from our bin to work on. The client happened to be her neighbor, and she proceeded to talk to him the next day about how much money he made, etc. He was rightfully furious and complained to a partner. She didn't last long after that. Next story. Doubt it ruined his career or anything, but we had an intern skip trainings and ignore messages to hide in one of the soundproof rooms and watch Netflix. He got let go pretty quickly after that. Next story. Guy almost ruined his career just as it was starting. This goes back roughly 25 years ago. Not Big 5, but next tier size. Firm-wide golf outing. Young associate gets rip-roaring drunk, as in drinking straight out of the bottle, makes in behind of himself, but he knew he had tucked up. He knows he's going to be fired unless he does something. First thing Monday morning, he walked into the managing partner's office and apologized. Also explained it would never happen again. That young associate is now a director at that same firm. Never. Also, I looked the guy up and he's in partner in a top 10 firm. Next story. I would say that Nadine Ahn, CFO of RBC, ruined her career by damn her subordinate. But in reality, she just ended up in another CFO position. Remember, the elites never suffer any consequences for their actions. Next story. When I was a Bebe accountant temping while I interviewed for PA roles, I was working Cash App for a CPG manufacturer, whole department of women who had been doing this job with that company for decades, and they brought in some big shot 6-foot-plus man who works in finance type to be a director level above us and the AR department, which was also mostly women. This dude had that sales guy chatting with the bigwigs sort of vibe. Didn't really know much about what we did or how to interact with a bunch of middle-aged flex schedule moms and grandmas. I think he'd been there like 6 weeks when he hit reply all on a departmental email about the upcoming holiday schedule with a very nice gif of nearly undressed Borat in the banana sling. He was gone in less than 24 hours. Moral of the story, if you don't know what the heck you're doing, be humble and learn from people who do. Don't be a jerk about the work being beneath you, or they'll let you go the first chance they get, no matter how ridiculous. And never, ever underestimate the political power of a middle-aged woman named Lori in a lower-level role who has been with the company for 20-plus years. Protect her peace at all costs, because she can get you gone with one phone call. Next story. How about one where you can't believe they didn't get fired? Small-cap energy company had a big corporate retreat in the wilderness outside of town. Typical consultant-lead trash team building led by useless HR types during the day. The night we were staying at the cabins turned into a booze-filled rager that ended with an angry escort showing up to the controller's cabin room as the CFO ordered an escort from the city and subsequently passed out before she arrived. She wanted someone to pay her for driving out, etc., and caused a heck of a ruckus. Controller paid her, CFO woke up with a hangover and paid the controller back double for the trouble he caused, and nothing came of it. Next story. It was Halloween at a Fortune 500 company. She dressed as a cat and went to the CEO's office. She professed to be a cat, literally meowing and making biscuits on his sofa. The CEO was very confused. She got demoted and left shortly after. Next story. Oh, I got one. Did internal payroll processing for a public accounting firm. I was an assistant, so I just had to verify docs, manually enter numbers for JEs, and other tasks like that for our staff. It was crazy to me how many accountants didn't understand how payroll worked or how to work the portal. Seriously, these dudes in their 30s to 50s really needed some tech lessons. Normally, I had to reach out if there was an issue with the documents they provided, but often it was just a quick double check for the info and direct deposit stuff. Then we had a new remote employee start. Guy uploaded a photo of his SSN card, ID, docs, etc. to our portal, and when I was going through to double check it for payroll, the photos were extremely inappropriate. Like he was sitting down, had the stuff balanced on his leg, and was snapping quick photos that were blurry, but I could definitely see he wasn't wearing clothes in any of them. I had to tell my boss and he went, yeah, I'm just going to call and let her know this guy isn't going to work out. Sorry you had to see that. Next story. I worked for Best Buy while I was in college. There was a new manager that all the sales staff loved. He basically let people do whatever they wanted. 5 months in, cops took him out of the store one day. Apparently he had been stealing every single night from the day they promoted him. It was enough to land him a second-degree grand theft. Next story. When I was at GT, there was a manager who got super paranoid about his girlfriend, brought a firearm into work, and threatened the partner. Southern California office. Next story. I had a Christmas party devolve into one of the partners taking everyone to the adult entertainment venue, then invite one of our biggest clients who rocked up, soiled himself, and left. That was after one of the other female partners got everyone to take a chest photo. It was more of a bonding experience, really. I think it was actually career strengthening. Next story. Doing an internship at a nonprofit, 10 employees. One day, I hear yelling in the corridor. I stick my head into the hallway to see what's going on. just in time to see the president yell at the VP that he's drunk and has to leave. VP argues the point, slurring his speech badly. President punches the VP with a roundhouse right hand. VP slumps to the floor, dazed. President goes into his office and shuts the door. The VP takes a few seconds to orient himself, then stands back up. I ducked back into the office before he was standing back up and wondered what the heck just happened. A minute later, I hear the VP yelling, and he's clearly so drunk he can barely talk. He goes into his office and closes the door. Police come in about 15 minutes and remove the VP. I was too chicken to ask anyone later what happened. Next story. Senior accountant did not want to collaborate with the new CFO. Started saying bad things about them, and got fired. It was super awkward for the whole team to be in the middle of two people for months. It took them months to get a new job, almost a year for what I saw on LinkedIn, and I don't know if I trust them again. Next story. Happened before my time, but an audit manager was running an illegal escort ring. He asked someone in IT to help him with the website. I don't know much beyond that, but damn. Next story. I quit my job without a new one lined up or a plan 3 years ago, and I've been suffering the consequences ever since. So maybe just go talk to a therapist instead of rage quitting. Next story. I was at an intern retreat with EY for interns that had been given offers. The big Orlando trip to Disney. You had to sign into an app with your work email to see your seminar, event schedule, and during the seminars, you could submit questions to the speakers that would come up on the board. You could check a box within the app to make it show as anonymous when your question came up on the big screen, but obviously you're submitting the question through an app signed in on your work email. Still, some idiot sent a bunch of questions through the app anonymously. Mark Weinberger, EY CEO at the time, gave a speech about all their offers being pulled to us the next day. That trip you also had to agree to sober the entire time airport to airport, and saw a guy from the Dallas office I knew get his offer pulled right and sent home at the gate right as we landed in Orlando for drinking on the plane. Next story. Someone I know was a student recruit for a Big Four and invited to a staff event prior to starting in the fall. The person took a taxi chit and traveled 2 hours back to their city. Offer was rescinded. Next story. Used to work in the finance department of a municipality, and one of the new collection clerks stole $2,000 cash from the collection box. Within a few weeks, they found out it was her, and she was arrested and fired. Stealing in a government job? The penalties are high because it's taxpayer money. Sad too, she was a single mom that landed a good career with a pension, but she threw it down the trash for a quick $2,000. The whole finance department was interviewed by police officers and our work checked by analysts. I did all the bank recs, and there were collection slips recorded in our books, adding up to $2,000 that were never actually deposited to the bank, so the reconciliation didn't balance. Funny enough, I went to the CFO thinking the banks messed something up. I had no clue I had discovered theft, fraud. Interesting experience. Next story. Aunt worked for a large local bank. Stole several cakes from an office party. My memories of her also include her stealing food from a kid's lunch program, taking percentages out of her teenage kids' paychecks, hustling boyfriends to pay for her kids' private college tuition, and making really terrible deviled eggs. Next story. Habitually late and leaving work early. Seem to be always on a break. This is the case for a new joiner in our company. Management always have eyes, even if you think you are just a lowly level employee. Also, getting too drunk and forgetting to act professionally in a company Christmas party. Next story. I left a government contracting position, but I still had contact with several coworkers. The contract wasn't doing well, so tensions were high with executive management. I was told that the program director and the deputy program director ended up fist-fighting each other, which resulted in both of them and a secretary getting injured as well as destruction of government property, monitors, wall monitor, desk, side table, and the glass coffee table in the sitting area. They handcuffed and taken to the on-site medical center, treated while still cuffed. Then they were fired and arrested. They served 3 months in jail, 1 year probation, security clearances stripped, and had to pay for the furniture, and then they both were successfully sued by the injured secretary. Next story. Worked for a CPA. He fired me. After 20-something years, got curious about what happened to him, so I Googled him. He was in jail for embezzling money from his employer. Turns out, this good Christian family man with 5 kids wired $1 million to his offshore account so he could run away with his mistress. How did he get caught? A temp found the wire transfer. He drives for Uber now. Ironically, his partner's grandson went to jail for taking bribes to approve loans for the bank he worked at. Birds of a feather. Next story. I am working for a multinational company with thousands of employees. A member of HR team sent a text message to applicants to announce an important information about the recruitment process. He carelessly used a vulgar slang in the message, and it became very scandalous. The message has been all over the evening news that day in my country. I still can't understand why he did so, and what was wrong with him. Next story. In a firm-wide video call, our leadership was talking about our new diversity initiatives. One of the seniors messaged in the regional chat group, 200+ members. I bet this is why my husband is not hired. He is white. I believe the senior was fired afterwards. Next story. It's quite hard to completely nuke a career, as opposed to simply starting fresh at a different place. Have seen a couple people just walk out. Literally just, I'm out, which may not seem dramatic to my US brethren with their at-will work rules, but Europe side, that is unusual. Next story. Lady I worked with was dating a violent alcoholic. Well, he started coming out office. We had to enhance all the office security, and she was never the same. I heard he seriously injured himself punching through a window. Next story. Former colleague was previously in private practice doing family law. Mom was a registered nurse with a substance problem and had to undergo regular screening, the results of which were to be kept strictly confidential by court order. Test came back positive. Colleague, who was representing Dad, shared said confidential screening results with Dad's new girlfriend. New girlfriend proceeds to share positive test results with Board of Registered Nursing. Former colleague proceeds to have license suspended by State Bar. Anyone ever made a huge mistake at work? Next story. Formatted the wrong hard drive. Bricked a 5K video card. Spent money I wasn't supposed to spend. Had a RAID 5 array lose 2 drives within 5 minutes of each other. Everyone has some mess-ups. If you haven't, you just haven't yet. Next story. Guy turned his laptop into IT, and I assumed it was his last day. We ended up imaging it 2 days later, only to find out he was moving and would get it back in 2 months. This was my first week. Whoops. Next story. Messed up really bad this year. Tried to shrink a VM hard drive, and it just straight corrupted, and I stupidly did not back up or snapshot it. So all our data gone. Luckily, we moved to cloud storage a few months back, but some archive stuff is gone. Next story. Nothing serious. I did unplug the environment once though. I had made sure to completely unhook all devices from an UPS I was going to replace. Double, triple checked. Went to lunch, came back, pulled the floor tile, and everything came down. I had pulled the wrong tile, and the power layout under that tile was absolutely identical to the one I was supposed to be working on, so I didn't know I was in the wrong spot until everything ate crap. Next story. On my 3rd day working as a support analyst, I almost bricked a user's workstation by popping out the CMOS battery and putting it back in. When it powered on, the screen would turn on, but it wouldn't reach BIOS or the OS. Next story. Dropped a monitor as an intern. Team leader was cool about it, and the monitor still worked, but the bezel corner was cracked. Use it as a test station monitor. I know a group of contractors that ordered really cheap USB-A extension cables from a 0-star Amazon seller, and they got bobbleheads instead inside the package. Have them in the office is a little reminder and joke. Next story. I wiped out all of the DocuSign templates my first month on the new job. A department was wanting to try some new routing or something, and so I made a shared folder and copied the existing templates to the folder, and we fooled with it for a couple of days, and that was that. Couple weeks later, I decided I would clean up, and so I deleted that folder I had made where we shared the documents through. Within an hour, and they were telling me all their Power Forms were not working. These web forms drive a number of important processes in the business, and this was a especially busy part of the year, so it was a BFD. Come to find out, the forms were driven by those templates, which were in the folder I deleted. I thought, no, those were just copies. But when I went to look for the original location, they were all gone. So apparently, it was a hard link to the actual templates in the folder that I deleted. I got on the phone with DocuSign support, and they said there was nothing they could do, which we found later to be false, but that's another story. And so the lady in charge of the department that owns those forms had to rebuild them all from scratch, using recent forms that had been sent. So it cost somebody else about a day's worth of work and put those processes behind by a day or so. So it wasn't monumental screw-up, but I've still never forgot it. But through it all, I openly admitted and owned up to my mistake without being overly apologetic. Nobody really cares who did what or why, they just need it fixed, you know? My boss, rather than being upset with me, commended me for the way I handled the situation, and I made a really great friend in that department. I offered to help rebuild the templates, but honestly, I don't know that I would have been able to do it, not knowing their business processes at the time. So I guess the moral of the story is, it really doesn't matter how bad you screw up, as much as what you do to make it right. Sometimes that simply means learning from it. Next story. Plugged both ends of a long Ethernet cable into the wall on separate ports. Caused a packet storm that took down the entire organization. Took a couple of hours to chase down the problem because at the time, I had no idea what a packet storm was and how one would be created. It was a learning experience, as yours will be. It's definitely embarrassing, but you'll move on and probably never do that exact same thing again. Next story. I worked for a school district that was getting brand new mobile Chromebook charging station. I was in charge of making sure they got to the building and helping load them off the truck. They can hold up to about 30 Chromebooks each and weight easily 200 pounds. I placed one on the truck flatbed too close to the edge. As the bed started to lower, it tipped and hit the ground. It was so loud I can still remember the truck shaking from the impact. It was empty, thankfully, but was ruined due to the huge dent and $900 down the drain. Whoops! At the end of the day, I was thankful no one got hurt, but man did I get chewed out for it. Next story. Everyone makes mistakes. I deleted the entire unblock websites from Mimecast one time. That was a task to restore. My infrastructure manager took down a whole site one time. My supervisor shut down all printing for the company one time. We all still have our jobs. Crap happens. The most important thing is you learn from your mistakes and not repeat them. Next story. Instead of shutting down a node for storage cluster, accidentally shut down the whole cluster. It's like pulling the storage away from ESXi, which leads to all paths down. I started getting cold sweats and trembling as soon as I noticed. Nearly had a heart attack. Thankfully, I powered it back on ASAP, and nothing happened. Next story. So far, my biggest mistakes was accidentally giving a user write permission to one of the main parent folders in our NAS, but it was easily undoable, and nobody knew about it. Next story. Sysadmin rolling out a new preventative maintenance package for the hospital asks me to report any loaded computers to try it out on. I get a computer with almost 500 user accounts. Take it upon myself to run it without getting a clear signal from management. There's a line to erase accounts older than 90 days. Except someone forgot a minus sign in front of that, so all accounts get erased, including many doctors and higher-ranking medical staff. I learned never run a package without a paper trail of authorization. Next story. Pre-staging updates got into the zone and hit update on an Exchange 2013 server midday. It was a service pack. Called our contact at the client ASAP, told her what I did and how long I expected email to be down. Everything was fine. She appreciated me being upfront and calling her right away. Longest Windows update of my life. As long as you own the mistakes, most people are going to be reasonable. Next story. I worked at a bank and my team bought a beefy server to run some VMs and a few Intel tools on. I threw pfSense on the server to act as the firewall, but neglected to turn off the DHCP server option. All of the computers on floors 6, 7, and 8 were pulling leases from my pfSense VM. Caused a P0 that day. Didn't get in trouble at all. Boss just said, "Go uncheck that box." And then they pushed a GPO to only allow DHCP leasing from approved servers. Next story. I haven't made a glaring mistake in a long time, but once I did give someone access to a shared folder without the proper clearance. I got an earful for that one. Not that big of a deal compared to one of my coworkers who deleted the CTO, CIO, and half of development's Active Directory profiles. He was fired the next day. Next story. Crashed a prod database because I ran a delete query in dev that was replicating transaction logs to the DR center. The boss absolutely lost it when he figured it out, and he had someone to throw under the bus. It won't be your last mess up. Just own it and move on. Next story. Not the most horrible, but I feel really bad. I accidentally caused a client's production to go down right before I went on vacation for 3 days. I didn't know they were prod down until I got back. Next story. I've crashed an email server. I've deleted instead of backing up. That was a fun one. Lost my super user RSA token day 1 on the job. Dinged the boss's Benz. The list goes on. Live and learn. Next story. I once dropped 300 point-to-point circuits for an entire county and school district on the primary and backup circuits, rendering their network basically unusable for about an hour until the TAC fixed it. What happened? I applied a global command instead of a circuit-level command that was the exact same. And when I did that, it set that specific attribute across all circuits as a default. It couldn't have happened at a worse time, as the school district was undergoing standardized testing for their students. Needless to say, it warranted a meeting at HQ between a really prominent networking trainer who also was a consultant for the school district, and a lot of upper management heard about it. I was fighting for a raise for the longest time, and when upper management asked my boss who did it, they pulled my pending raise, which was supposed to go into effect the following pay period. Yeah, that was a fun one. I had recommended remediation to prevent it from happening again, but no action was taken on that recommendation. Needless to say, knowing my raise was not going to happen anytime soon, I ended up quitting about a month later for a different job, which in hindsight was 1000% better for me in terms of career progression. I had been at this particular ISP for 5+ years and worked my way up and was bought low as a result. The icing on the cake is that I have seen guys accidentally take down the entire city with accidental misconfiguration, including aforementioned school district, and there are numerous outage stories that are shared throughout that department, but I just happened to cause an outage at the wrong time with the wrong people. Now, I have been in the industry for 13 years and still have a few other stories, but that is the one I love to share because the repercussions were so bad that it caused me to quit, knowing there was no financial incentive for me to continue there. At the time, I didn't really realize, but their post-mortem process was horrible, and instead of trying to prevent it from happening again, they were more interested in making an example out of me, which is an awful way to run your business. I have caused other outages due to various reasons. I now work in cloud engineering, app development, but the company I work for now takes all the necessary steps to prevent outages from happening again. The only time an employee should be written up or punished is if they made the same mistake twice, knowing well they shouldn't have, or avoided a specific process for something. Crap happens in this industry all the time. Next story. I was an intern for the network team at a hospital system. I was tasked with configuring a new switch for the network stack at the call center. I was SSH'd into one of the switches at the call center to review the configuration so that I could copy what I needed for the new switch I was working on. Once I got that, I was going to factory reset the new switch so that I can apply fresh configuration to it. Sadly, instead of inputting the factory reset command to the console window of the switch that was on my desk, I factory reset the switch at the call center. The main PBX server was on that switch, and it took down the entire call center's phones. There were hundreds of people that work there. Somehow, the switch recovered after my team tried to revert the process. Somehow it reverted even though the factory reset command can't really be interrupted, but the PBX server didn't recover. We had to get the vendor to help us with this throughout the night. I stayed as long as I had to in order to explain everything that I did, and I owned up to it. Felt super bad. The next day, my manager calls me into his office and said that the organization spent over $200,000 to fix the issue. Thankfully, I was still able to finish my internship there. Pretty expensive lesson on making sure you type commands into the right window. I was also the last ever intern for the network team. Whether I had something to do with it? Not sure. Next story. Very recently, I was decommissioning an SBS server that used to do Exchange. I've only been in IT 3 years, so SBS is a little foreign. I was following some documentation and had issues with the Exchange database as there were still mailboxes present. I checked the Exchange console and there was no mail activity. So what did I do? I deleted all the mailboxes from the console. Things got strange when I could no longer access the SBS dashboard. I told the senior tech what I had done, and instantly his face changed complexion. He asked me to look at the users in AD. All domain users were gone, including the domain admin I was logged in with. I called the client and explained the situation, told my boss, and went to work. We were looking at a full restore and hours of downtime. I was able to log in as a local admin. Embarrassingly, we didn't have the credentials, but was able to reset the password in AD on my now non-existent session and access AD Recycle Bin. Whoever installed that software really made a bad situation a little better. Lessons learned. Ask questions if unsure, even if I feel like I am annoying other techs. When deleting anything, think about any possible implications, no matter the scale.